Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go.
On today's show, we have Devon Brady, who comes to us from about blocks away from where our studio is located. I have become friends with him recently on social media. We're here today to talk about his history in music, what he's up to today, and just kind of Tampa and culture in general. So I don't know when I first noticed that we were Facebook friends, but it was somewhat recently that you reached out to me and we kind of had the discussion, do we know each other? And if we don't know each other, why don't we know each other?
Right, yeah.
Are you a Tampa guy from the jump or
Yeah, 46 years now.
46 years young. All right. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Gaither for high school.
Okay.
I was actually more in Kings District. And I did 2 years at Gaither, and then I did early admissions thing at USF, so I left there a little early.
What was your bag back then? Were you athletic? Were you academic? Were you an artist?
I was just a punk rocker.
Back then?
Pretty much.
So 46, punk rocker, sophomore year of high school. What are we talking, like 88?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who are the bands in 88 that we're listening to?
Let's see. So we were going to,
tell me the shows. I want to hear the shows.
Bad Brains at the Cuban Club.
Oh.
SNFU in Orlando with The Accused. Slayer and Motorhead at the fairgrounds.
You're killing me.
Were
you a skateboarder?
I was a little bit, yeah. After I broke my arm a couple of times,
that'll teach you.
Yeah.
Oh, Bad Brains at the Cuban Club. Oh, I can't even imagine. What album would that have been? Was that?
So I got into it young. I had older brothers, so I was probably 13 or 14 years old at that time. So it would have been.
Had they turned reggae yet, or were they still fast?
HR hadn't really. So that was probably not too long after Eye Against Eye. I bought Eye Against Eye was the very first CD I ever bought for my brand new JVC CD player, and so that was whatever the year of release was.
Right.
I think it was around 88.
Right.
Or so.
Right. Motorhead and Slayer. So was that like Seasons in the Abyss, or was that even before that?
I think it was before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motorhead, I'm not good with album titles. They just kind of Motorhead just kind of
they're just
like the air you breathe. They're just there, and they've got something they're touring on, and it all is great. It kind of sounds the same, but it's all great.
Yeah.
SNFU. So I remember them. What were they? Epitaph? What was their?
SNFU, I'm not good with labels, but SNFU was, they were a Canadian band.
I remember them, and the singer just passed recently, right?
Yeah.
But somehow I got into, because I think Pennywise was on the same label as SNFU, and I thought it was Epitaph, and I just went through Bad Religion and every version of everything that came out through that label.
Right.
I did that with Discord. I did that with Epitaph. I did that with Revelation and some of these other ones. And so, all right. Any other big shows around that time?
Around that time, let me see. So there were little venues in Ybor. There was a place that we would play at called the Generic Club. What
was your band? What was your first band that you were in?
My first band that played out was called Urban Decay.
Great hardcore. New York hardcore band sounding name.
Me and my brother Taylor and two other guys.
What'd you play?
And, I played drums for that band.
How many pieces did you have?
I was playing a 5-piece kit. At some point, I pared it down to a 4-piece kit.
Now, did you do band at all in school, or?
I did.
So did you have the rudiments? You kind of knew some of that stuff?
A little bit. I don't know if I was asked to leave the marching band, but I wasn't welcome.
They were going out of their way to keep you on it. Was that because you were
I just wasn't
doing your own thing,
I wasn't into it.
Not your bag? Yeah.
I didn't like the white shoes thing. That I had a thing with that, and
it's such a weird thing because I mean we've all been in high school. We all remember the band, and the band is not the football team. It's not the baseball team.
Yeah.
But some of the most amazing rock drummers out there, but for the band. wouldn't be where they're at.
Playing in the drum corps in the band was kind of cool because we kind of did our own thing. Like we would write our own drum cadences and give them their, like pornographic titles that we would yell out to each other and stuff. That was like our thing. So you kind of got to do your own thing. And it was, as playing the drums in the marching band is as cool as you could get in the marching band, which still isn't very cool. But, somewhere there's a picture of me in like a parade downtown where I had the hat on like the side of my head and the big stupid plume sticking off to the left. And I'm looking at the camera like, this sucks. It was hot and you're wearing that polyester uniform.
But I think that stuff is important in everybody's life. It's my A Boy Named Sue philosophy. Like everybody needs to be the focus of ridicule and, consternation at some point in your life, because that's how you steel yourself against the shit in life, If you just go through all green lights, all open doors, you become a vapid, hollow, shallow, boring person.
Yeah. And I kind of, I didn't really use those skills until later on, because I had pretty much, I was making art and playing in bands and doing my own thing. And then at some point around just before I turned 30, I decided to go back to school and do the fire academy and paramedic school and stuff. And that was like, much more of a paramilitary kind of.
It's a whole other side of your brain, personality, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, being able to tolerate, especially at 30 years old, because I was like, I'm a grown ass man. I've been, like, most of the kids with me in fire academy were 18 years old. Like,
right. You have some perspective on life. Yeah.
But it's good to to have some of that in your past, so you know how to deal with that kind of thing.
Now you just kind of mentioned it. Graphic arts, was that your thing early on too? What came first, the graphic or the musical?
The music came first. I kind of fell into the visual art stuff.
Was it comic books and album covers, punk posters? Was that what
I was
did it
never
for you?
really a comic book guy. I was more into sculpture and photography. That was what I majored in.
It's a very mature form of graphic art for a young kid.
I was always, as a young kid, I was really into photography and architecture were like my things that I was interested in.
Photography back then was, you're talking light rooms and film and develop. It's not like today where you have 5 Photoshop Express apps on your phone and you can,
So I was the darkroom technician at the Oracle at USF, and that was a great job. I had this whole darkroom to myself. Whenever anybody would knock on the door, I'd tell them I had film out, and I just sat there and smoked cigarettes under the fume hood and put my feet up on the thing, listen to music, and printed my own photos. That's
not a bad gig.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
So how long did Urban Decay last?
Those times feel like things went on for a long time, but they, when you look at
the time, it was like, it was 10 years. You look back, it was like 3 months,
6 months or something. Yeah. I want to say the number of shows that we played out was like, you could have counted them on one hand. So
disagreement over the direction of the band.
I don't even know.
Was there a Yoko? What led to someone graduate?
I really can't even pinpoint like how it, fell apart at the time. Yeah, I don't know. We were all friends with each other. We remained friends with each other. My friend Sarp Cayenne, who was the bassist, unfortunately passed away quite a few years ago now. But yeah, we were all tight. And well, the thing was that like those bands were, you kind of moved in and out of them. There were like, a lot of guys
it's almost
playing.
Per show. It's like, who's in the band? What's the band called this week?
Yeah. And so it wasn't a whole lot of like being upset. Like, I'm going to go play drums for these guys now. And then this guy's going to switch from playing drums to playing the bass or whatever. Or sometimes we do that in the middle of shows too. Like I play drums on this song and you play the bass or whatever,
Right.
Was just,
so was that the whole of your high school career in that band or?
Let me think. So I guess, we did some other little things here and there. My stepbrother was in a band that was a lot more successful than anything that I was ever in. So I kind of was more of a hanger on around his band and his friends for those years after I wasn't playing so much in doing my own things. And then, like I said, I started USF early, so I was like 17 when I got into USF. It was, at the time I thought it was a good thing to do. But towards the end of it, I realized like, I'm done with my degree. I'm still living in this house with all my friends. I'm getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and go to my construction job.
Right.
And they're all like, sleeping till 11. And I was like, if I had wanted to be a doctor or something, it would have made sense to like get all that stuff out of the way and continue on.
Yeah, but
I didn't have
you're
much
just
of a
speeding
plan.
up something that was, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I could go to grad school for art, and I kind of, went and interviewed at some schools and stuff, and was like, not really what I want to do, So I kind of.
So you got your degree, you did construction, and then you went into the firefighter.
Well, I did. So I went to work for a theatrical design company. Building sets and props and things like that. A lot of theme park work, and I did that for about 10 years. So,
wow!
And a lot of different
boardwalk and baseball.
More SeaWorld, Busch Gardens.
Okay.
But I also I worked as a welder, building race cars and just all sorts of different things. Like
You've
I said,
done it all.
Darkroom technician. So. Yeah, the welding stuff was like a skill that I picked up in school doing metal sculpture, and then for like the last year and a half or so that I was in USF, that's how I was paying for school, was working for a company that we were making like mechanical conveyor systems, and then I got a job building these kit car race.
You can
cars.
do all right with that. I had an underwater welder guy who made bank. He was always out at sea for like 6 months of the year, but got paid. Supposedly it's extremely dangerous, but
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But he made good money doing it. So any other bands going on around that time? I mean, where was there just a big old stop after Fourth Century?
Well, yeah. So I kind of, this has kind of been my story throughout. As
you got to film my time between Fourth Century and Allison,
Well, so I kind of dropped out of the music scene a little bit when I started art school and got wrapped up in the visual art thing, but I always kind of still dabbled. So what I ended up doing was nights like when I was in art school, I would go down to Ybor and I would sit in with like James Peterson at the blues ship.
Yeah.
And all these old 60-year-old blues players would come show up at our house in Temple Terrace at like 3:00 in the morning and bang on the door and go like, "Hey, let's play Mustang Sally one more time."
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So that was a cool education. And those guys were just, came from a totally different world and had a totally different set of experiences. And but they were like really accepting of me and our friends. And so I could show up down there and they'd like kick the drummer off for a little bit and go, "Come on up, Devon, we'll play a few songs," So that was kind of what I did, and then we just had like a jam band that would play in our art studio, just kind of screwing around improvisational stuff.
And the graphic arts, when you were in art school, was it still the photography and sculpture, or were you breaking out into other things?
So I did the way they had it set up at USF at the time, you would do concentrations so I did a full concentration in photography. I could have graduated just with my concentration in photography, but I decided to switch to or pursue a concentration in sculpture after I had finished the photography concentration. So I kind of went back through another round. So
your interest in that, did that come from somewhere? Did it come from a certain artist, a certain school of art, film? Like what was it that was? I was really into, and still am, I was really into kinetic sculpture and things like Jean Tingley, like these big assemblages of machines. And then the kind of punk element of that was like what the guys at Survival Research Labs were doing in San Francisco at the time, where they're putting on these like arena shows of these giant like monster robot things that would attack each other and set things on fire. Was it stop motion or was it? No, it was, these were like robotic creations that they could drive around, but they were also like really politically active. And so I used to sit at the library at USF because they had all those things on videotape, the SRL, Survival Research Labs performances in different cities and stuff. And like they would do stuff like they'd be in Germany and they had this giant sound cannon thing that they would just like drive it up to the audience and fire it. And it's one of those like crowd control devices that compresses your chest and makes you want to vomit kind of thing. And like there's one video of them in Germany. They're like, "Well, we got word that the cops were going to raid this squat. And we don't know how, but the squatters got a hold of our sound cannon and we're chasing the riot police around with it." And then you see this like aerial footage of them driving this thing around, chasing the cops away from the squat. That was like the kind of stuff that SRL would do, or like fire up these giant jet engines that they had built right next to the park in San Francisco. And just, you see this whole crowd of people. It's a little bit of anarchy, a little bit of absurdism, a little bit of political, statement. I dig it. That's pretty cool.
So the first big show that I was given was myself and my brother Taylor, who's a writer, and another sculptor.
How many siblings?
I have one real brother, and then through marriages and remarriages, there's 5 children on my mom's side of the family, and then I have another stepbrother and stepsister on my dad's side.
And what's Taylor to you?
Taylor is my real brother. Yeah,
so both of you have it in your blood, this hunger to create, to whatever the case may be.
Yeah, he's a writer, a poet. He lives in Oakland and has for years, and he's published author of multiple volumes of poetry and that kind of thing.
Same last name?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. What about parents or going further back? Is art something in your family, or is this?
Music was a big thing in my family. Well, so art as well. So my stepfather, who was basically my father growing up for a large portion of it, his father was an Italian painter named Mario Rendina. And his work hangs in like the National Gallery in Rome. And then he moved here in the 40s to Siesta Key and started painting in like the black bar rooms of Sarasota and stuff, and did some really great work from that time. So that's kind of all that lore. None of it's hereditary, but that lore of the working artist as an actual vocation,
right,
is kind of part of the family. And then music was always a big part of it. And so my parents were like, 60s Tampa hippie kind of.
What was playing in the house? Crosby, Stills and Nash? Or
yeah, a lot of
Pete
that.
Seeger, Bob Dylan?
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of, we went to a lot of bluegrass festivals and folk festivals and stuff. So the first instrument that I played was the banjo. I started playing the banjo.
I got one recently, and I don't know what it is, but it's hard to hit a chord that doesn't sound good on them, as opposed to a guitar. It's the open tuning and just the way it's set up. But literally, I was just farting around with it. I was like, this all sounds great. It's hard to hit a bad note on it.
Although they say the joke is like, what's the difference? What's the difference between a banjo and a Harley? You can tune a Harley.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's probably true too. Yeah, but they're fun.
But yeah.
Anyway. Was politics part of your upbringing? I mean, was that something discussed by your family in the house?
Yeah. My dad, especially. I mean, my dad was like a Marxist philosophy major at USF who
sounds like my dad. Yeah,
went on to work for a window shutter manufacturer. So he was full of angst about that situation, and then ended up at Jiffy Lube later in life. So,
right? Yeah.
Don't get him started.
Yeah. But my dad was a school teacher, but it's socialist to the point of being communist and anti-war and anti-money and anti-everything. And
yeah.
It's interesting. I a lot of that flow through to me, but at the same time, I like sneakers and I like air conditioning. Right. I like some of the luxuries of life, and it's hard to rectify those two things.
Yeah, my parents weren't too hardcore in that regard. Like some of my other friends, and you go to the house and all there was is like wheat germ in the fridge and stuff like that.
They're pot committed, man. Yeah, they're all in. So after art school, did art school come before firefighter or after?
Yeah, well before. So art school, then like I said, scenic design, fabrication for about 10 years. And then basically after 9/11, I was laid off from my, which was at that time basically a construction job. I was like a trim carpenter. And there was nothing happening. None of the scenic stuff, none of the theme parks, everything was shut down. Nobody was flying, nobody was traveling. So there wasn't anything going on.
Yeah, tourism was non-existent.
Looking around and seeing what had been in the news and stuff.
Everybody was going to firefighter at that point. I remember, and it was it got a lot. It used to be like if you're the captain of the football team, you could get on the fire, but then it was like EMT and all this other, it was like a big. You got to.
Yeah.
And then to get on with a crew was a whole other thing.
Yeah. So I didn't really know, I kind of researched it. I never knew anybody, none of my family, I didn't have any experience with it. So like you said, when I started looking into it, it was like, man, there's a lot of medical stuff involved and I'm not sure how much I'm going to like that. So I thought, well, I'll go to EMT school first, because that's like 6 months. If I don't like it, that's all I've committed to it, and, almost passed out the first time I watched them draw blood on a clinical rotation at Tampa General. And I sat there I had the Brady EMT textbook, and there was a picture of just this horrific hand injury that was like, I couldn't look at it.
Yeah.
And so I sat there on the couch by myself at home, and I just stared at this picture until I passed out, and then I would wake up and sit up, and I would stare at the picture until I
forced yourself. It was like Clockwork Orange, peeling your eyelids open, making you watch all the stuff.
So I did that. Like I passed out like 3 or 4 times, and then I was good with it. And basically since then, I'm pretty much you can't gross me out or offend me.
Are you still working in that world, or
Yeah,
okay?
So I'm a captain with Hillsborough County now.
Oh my gosh, what firehouse are you at?
I just moved over to Station 31, which is corner of Hillsborough and Sheldon.
You know Terry Payne?
Terry Payne.
T-Pain's limbs and blah blah blah. He's like my wife's cousin.
Is he Hillsborough County or City of Tampa?
I think he's the firehouse that's over south of Gandy on like Himes or something.
Okay, then
like
it's
that.
He's City of Tampa then. Yeah.
He loves to, like, when I'm pulling in my driveway when he's coming down the interbay there in the truck, hit me with the horn and scare the living shit out of me.
right.
That firefighter sense of humor.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so yeah, I've been doing that for 16 years now, and it's a really good fit for people that have other creative pursuits.
Nathan Dean or Ken Sargent or
Nathan Dean rings a bell with me. Okay. But yeah,
I get a lot of firefighter clients. So
yeah, we're Hillsborough County now. So my badge number is 774, and I've got a rookie whose badge number is like 18 something.
Oh, is it linear? Is it?
They've hired 1,100 people since I was hired.
That's interesting. I guess that makes sense, but I didn't realize it was,
Yeah. So it's just, literally every day I have a new guy in my station who I've never seen before. Although I'm getting kind of bad in my old age now. It's like, how many 5'9" white guys with short hair and a blue shirt can you meet?
Not only that, the transient nature of who's coming through. Yeah. It's like, how much bandwidth am I going to devote to getting to know you when you're going to be gone?
But it's funny because I remember that when I was a rookie, like, you have these formative experiences. If you fought a fire, like ran some crazy call, and that captain and that experience is going to stick out in your mind for the rest of your life. But to me, it's like, I've done it 1,000 times, and I don't even remember who was there with me.
I've had that with attorneys where I thought, it's like, I did this case with such and such, and they're like, I don't even remember you being in the courtroom. Right. So, that's interesting. So, now you mentioned in I wanted to talk about the music that you sent me, and I wanted to talk about the fictitious band name registry.
Okay,
Tell me about that.
All right. So, Handshake Squad is what I sent you, which is basically my kind of last real musical endeavor that lasted for about 10 years.
Not punk.
No, more.
Where would you put that? I kind of almost have it in like a Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds kind of.
Yeah, a little. There's like, I would say that when people generated comparisons, it was always somewhere between like, they might be giants, Elvis Costello and Frank Zappa or something like. So
a little bit of absurdism, a little bit of tongue in cheek. The vocals are very clear and pronounced. It's you know what the song is about. Well,
right.
Maybe not philosophically, but you know what what is being communicated to you. But no, I can definitely follow all those. The thing that really jumped out to me about it was reading the story behind it, which is what I thought was one of the coolest parts about it. And I sent you, albeit super late for you to have any time to consume it, but about the Dogma 95 movement, which I've talked about before on the show. Lars Von Trier, who's a Swedish, do you know who he is?
And I know a little bit. You have to jog my memory because I know I've got a few friends that are film people, so I know I've talked about this before, but
basically they're creating rules that you're following.
Right. Yes.
So you're either doing it by including something or by subtracting something. And like, what was it? Was it called Dogtown? Was it Dogtown? Dogsville, something. One of his movies, there was no set. They just drew chalk lines on the floor. And so this was the cabin and this was the bathroom.
Right.
And you get an hour and a half into the movie and you don't even notice that there's not a set anymore. Which is cool about it. But with the Dog 95, it was him. The other guy did like Kids.
Okay. Shit, I'm going to forget his name now too.
God, it's going to kill me. But in any event,
not Harmony Korine.
Harmony Korine, I think he was in it for a moment. And there's some other people, but basically, like,
I was thinking of Larry Clark is the other. So Larry
Clark,
Clark
I think, wrote the movie, or she shot it, and Harmony Korine directed it. But basically, there's certain touchstones or principles, so everything is going to have to be filtered through that lens.
Yeah. So in Handshake Squad, there was a really good dynamic there because there's 4 guys in the band. 2 of them were PhD music composition students from Eastman School of Music, and so these guys were they were basically classical music composers,
right?
You know? So no difficulty in writing complex harmonies and things like that. And the kind of, but both really, you know, lighthearted, tongue in cheek, kind of, you know, funny guys. And and then myself and my friend Joel Brown, who is still actively playing music around here. He plays in a band called the Path of Increased Indifference right now, a metal band.
Awesome.
And really good stuff.
I love unnecessarily oblique and intricate metal names.
Yeah. And so he plays in a band with one of my current business partners, Tim Ogden, who's a brewer.
Tim Ogden, I know I see him on Facebook all the time.
Yeah, Tim's brewed for Cigar City and Tampa Bay Brewing Company.
You could ask him to come in here for me.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, he'll be a good chat too. But anyhow, Joel and I grew up together. We played in bands. We went to high school together.
So 2 punkers and 2 classical musicians.
Right. So that was basically
it was like a Mr. Bungle type of super group in a weird way.
And the kind of the joke of the whole thing was that their ability to write far surpassed any of our abilities to play any of what they wrote.
Right.
Know? So singing these 4-part harmonies.
Were they fuck with you? Were they doing it on purpose?
Because they struggled in this. Well, one of the guys, David Rogers, is probably the only one who was a really natural musician. I mean, he could sing anything. He could play anything. He played the accordion. He played the French horn, the guitar, and you know, could sing and hit the notes and all of that stuff. But the rest of us were just we had to practice our asses off to ever be able to perform these songs.
Did it make you better? I mean, did it sharpen your sword? Yeah.
But it was, and we developed kind of a very small but very loyal fan base of people that kind of got what it was about. And I think one night at New World, somebody said you know what I love about watching you guys is it's like watching a high wire act all the time. He's like, sometimes you guys just fucking crash and burn and it's a horrible catastrophe. But when you pull it off, it's we're all rooting for you to do it, you know? Yeah. So you know, you're dealing with terrible sound systems and you can never hear. And then, you know, you're trying to play the drums and sing 4-part harmonies at the same time. And
I love that.
You know?
I love that analogy though. That's something that's for me, music when it's most primal and it's most heartfelt is literally when it's you're on a wave, this is very temporary. The beginning and the end of it are going to be shit, but there's going to be one part in the middle that's just going to be sublime. And
and it's both ways. It's entertaining, right? When the figure skater goes up for the triple axel,
it needs it,
if they're going to land it, that's great. But if they bust ass, that's cool too.
That's very true.
It's something to watch either way. So, and then we were always just up for shenanigans on stage and stuff. So we had kind of a standing Halloween engagement at New World. We would do a Halloween show there every year, and we would do do you know Nowicki
and the Holy Terror and all those guys?
I know.
I could see you guys on a bill together.
Yeah,
I don't know if time wise you guys lined up.
I was listening to his interview with you the other day, and this is kind of a recurring theme with me, being in and out of these scenes. I kind of I'll miss these large chunks and then come back and
you've been a part of a lot of scenes though. If you kind of break it up into buckets,
So I kind of I've been into this the Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
And we've been working on the narrative for this project at the Peninsularium, this Crab Devil thing that we're working on, and so I've been kind of wrapped up in that narrative development thing, and I started thinking when I started on this Peninsularium project, this is the thing finally that brings together all of the skills that I've been amassing over all these years, and I didn't even know when I was doing it what I was doing, but it's just that in my sort of story, my narrative development, there's a long series of trials before I don't just have to learn how to do kung fu. I have to also learn how to defuse bombs and whatever,
right.
And so that I feel now I'm in that.
You're at the peak of your powers.
Right.
Yeah.
Now's the time to strike. We got to do it. We got to get this thing going. But
you're old enough to be wise and you're young enough to still be able.
Right. And that's
the perfect storm. Yeah.
When I started pitching this idea about 2 years ago to the partners that are involved, I was like, look, if we don't do this now, it's
talk to me about the partners and all this stuff, because I don't know the long and the short of it, and I don't know if the listeners do.
Right. So about 2 years ago, we embarked on this project to build out a large scale immersive arts attraction in Tampa. The closest kind of analogy to a similar operation would be a group called Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. They built out an attraction in an old bowling alley there in 2016. Their primary funder was George R.R. Martin, the Game of Thrones.
Sure, yeah.
They built this place out. It's about 30,000 square feet. They had like 100 artists involved in the build out of it, and they opened this attendance-based ticketed admission attraction that's all these immersive environments that are tied together kind of by this loose narrative. And they were trying to get 100,000 people through their doors in the first year, and they ended up getting 400,000.
Oh, wow.
And they've kind of done similarly every year since. So they've been growing.
And it's still up and running now? What's it called? What's it called, Santa Fe?
Meow Wolf.
Meow Wolf.
Yeah.
Like a cat's meow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the attraction there is called the House of Eternal Return, but the artists collective is called Meow Wolf.
Okay.
So
like Beowulf, but meow.
Yeah. They went from about 100 employees in 2016 when I first encountered them to like 450 employees pre-COVID doing projects all over the country. But when I first encountered that, it was kind of like, oh, this is what I've been waiting to do my whole life. This puts together all of that stuff, the writing and the music and the sculpture and all of those things, and being able to work. So we've been running this company, LiveWork Studios, since 2011.
LiveWork Studios.
That's my shop up next to Angry Chair.
Okay.
There. And now we have another facility over on Henry where we do most of the actual build out stuff, but we do mostly commercial bar and restaurant interiors and things like that. So like anywhere in Seminole Heights or Tampa Heights, like Armature Works, Angry Chair, Ichikoro.
That was you.
We've did all of those
Gotcha.
interiors. So, getting the skills and the kind of, this stuff takes a lot of equipment, takes a lot of space and all of that stuff. So like now we've got all of that stuff at our disposal, and now we can use all of that stuff, for good.
So where are you at in that process?
So we just closed on the property.
Where's the property? Is it
3800 North Nebraska?
Okay.
So it is just
north of here, or
it's a block south of MLK. On where the cash and
northeast of
carry
here.
is.
Yeah.
It's like one block south of that. It takes up a whole city block. It's a 2-acre property.
Okay. What was it?
It was variously a church, a funeral home, a bail bonds place,
nice.
and everything.
So
it was like
seen all of life's highs and lows.
Yeah, it was one family that did the whole. I think they basically you could.
Hopefully, it's haunted
from birth to death. Yeah,
I like the ideas of buildings kind of holding.
Well, we had
personality to it.
We had to go through the whole, ground penetrating radar and soil, surveys and all of that stuff, because there had been a funeral home on the site and a septic tank, and they were concerned about formaldehyde intrusion and all of that.
I saw poltergeist. I know what can happen.
It'd be fine.
Yeah.
So we closed on the property. We have other partners involved is Tempest Projects, the gallery that used to be right across from Nico's.
Uh-huh.
They'll be moving onto the site there with us, and then Tim Ogden's brewing operation, Deviant Libation. So
this sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we'll have a brewery, tasting room, an art gallery, and then 27 shipping containers full of immersive art on this site. That'll be a full day experience.
Now, will there be a musical component to it, or
the musical component will kind of come and go, at least in the early stages. We've got probably 3 or 4 different areas where we can put on smaller scale musical.
That'd be great if there was some kind of music hall, like small, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nothing like every day or that kind of thing, but definitely for special events and things starting out. And then, there's so many different, balls in the air with this project that we had to kind of like narrow some of it down and say,
is all the permitting, is that the
plans are drawn,
right?
They're before the city. We've gone through most of the revisions now. So they just kicked back a couple little things here and there. But we've got our general contractor lined up. So we should be breaking ground over there any day. Basically.
Financing's all good?
The finance. So over the last, we've been working on like pitch decks and stuff like that. So the last 2 weeks of evenings, basically, we've been doing pitches to just kind of a general pitch to people, community stakeholders, arts patrons, city officials, and also people that we might think could help us out financially.
Richard Gonsmar, Jeff Vinnick.
Yeah, we're trying to get our
your benefactors lined up.
Yeah, all of that stuff in front of the right people.
Right.
There's very specific limitations on what you can do in terms of direct solicitation and stuff.
I'm
the
sure.
SEC is involved in all of that stuff. So it's to say that it's a complicated affair.
It's a process. It's a work of art in and of itself.
Yeah, but
so what's the projected open date?
The projected open date is middle. Well, so we're doing 2 phases. The building that's there right now is about an 8,000 square foot building. That's what'll house the gallery and the brewery. We're trying to get that open middle of 2021, and then the immersive art experience, which will be in all of the shipping containers on the north side of the lot. We're trying to open that at the end of 2021.
Well, if there's a blessing that can be found through the chaos and hardship, it's that you seem to be on the right side of the pandemic for.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had started this 18 months ago, you'd be up Schitt's Creek right now.
Yeah, it would have been bad. And I mean, like you said, the blessing of it is also that, one, there's a ton of artists who need work right now. And what we need right now is a ton of artists to do work. So we've got that going for us. And we kind of have, we can have our pick of people right now because there's so much availability.
Yeah.
So we've got of the 27 containers that we're going to be outfitting, we've got 8 artists right now that we've signed contracts with and have gone through their preliminary design phases. We've just been cutting checks for the initial fabrication stuff for them. And we'll start bringing people into town that are out of towners and stuff to get.
Talk to me about immersive when you say that, what you mean.
So immersive is basically, engaging all of the senses, so
you can touch. It's not going to be a hands-off type of situation.
Yeah, it's not going to be a hands-off type of situation. It's not paintings on the wall. It's entire environments that surround you. So probably the things that people would be most familiar with are like the Kusama Infinity Rooms that like they brought one to the Tampa Museum last year, but yeah, things that are 3-dimensional in the round. Every surface has been treated. There's no there's no backside to anything. It's all there to be investigated, and also kind of in these places that are large scale immersive environments. Oftentimes there's sort of at least a loose narrative that binds everything together. So what we're working from here is kind of this old Florida roadside attraction, the kind of weird, gritty underbelly side of those kinds of things. So it's all very Florida centric. It's all locally based. And a lot of it's really like directly based on local history and lore and actual, factual stuff.
Well, that sounds amazing. So how many partners are involved in it?
There are 9 principals in Crab Devil. So consisting of myself, my wife, and my other partner at Livework. So the 3 of us have been doing this fabrication stuff since.
You have time to have a wife?
Yeah, and a 12-year-old son.
I was going to ask, how are you?
Yeah, it's fortunately, she works with me at Livework, and she's an artist and fabricator herself, but she also does all of our bookkeeping and keeping things.
That's nice that you can be together and still kind of, do your passion.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody that we were working with today, and he was because he also has a working relationship with his wife, and so my wife and I've been together almost 27 years now, and he was kind of asking like, how have you done this for so long? And I said, what I recommend is just low level bickering all the time. Like you got to have
it's healthy to kind of not let the pressure build up.
Right, exactly. Just let that, open the valve a little bit and let it bleed off a little.
If you can, So my wife and I think she came with the phrase, you've got to give each other a little rope and just kind of understand where the other's coming from. Right. And, okay, you had a bad day. All right. You had the kids all day. You're a little bit cabin fever. Okay. Give it, send a couple across the bow and I'll send a couple back. We'll have a gentleman's agreement that, that'll be enough of that. So I think that's good. Well,
but she and I have been working together since 1999.
Well, that's amazing though. I mean, that's amazing. That's a gift. Not many people get to do that.
Before we had a kid, so we kind of moved slowly through everything. We we lived together for 7 years, got married. We were married for another 7 years before we had a kid.
So
and so now,
you kick the tires and check the gauges before you move on to the next level.
But because we did it that way, we got to really have like a lot of adventures as just a childless couple. So we
travel
when between like the scenic company that we both worked for here, and then going on to other. She went back to school to get her to be a librarian, but in the intervening time, we would just like we went to the Bahamas and worked on the Atlantis Casino for months, and I would do the sculpting and fabrication, and she would do the painting.
God, you got to write a book,
that.
Man.
So yeah, we'd had a lot of we worked up in New York and all over the place, and it was a good deal for the clients because they could put us both in a hotel room together, and I could build the stuff and she could paint it, and
you're the total package. So tell me what about this fictitious band name registry.
Oh, okay. So fictitious band name repository.
Repository.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's been going for a while now. I want to say maybe 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. And there's a few thousand members on that page, 2,500 members or something like that. And it just churns like nonstop. I mean, is
it people just making up band names?
People just making up band names and then fighting with each other or whatever else, goes on there. But my stepbrother was doing it. He was in library school and proposed to write like a web crawler that would go through and take all these names and catalog them into one list.
Right.
Because it's almost the way Facebook is set up, it's impossible to go through and find them all.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's got to be hundreds of thousands of band
That's
names.
one of my favorite things to do. So if people who've listened to the show have heard me reference my band that have never all been in the same room at one time, but the name is the Fuck Hammocks. And that was I got him to spit his drink out, everybody. And there was an article, it was like an Onion article, and it was talking about how the city of St. Pete and Sarasota were reticent to put nets on the Skyway to stop suicide jumpers because they were become the fuck hammocks. People would be out there banging each other on the bridge. And I was like, that's the perfect name for a band.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
So are you playing music at all these days?
I
drumming is a hard one to do without a band.
I've got a kit, and occasionally when I have things cleared out and the shop will get it set up. The COVID kind of screwed things up. We had been just doing like the occasional. We were calling it Dad Rock. It started out as like a Father's Day thing. Like everybody that doesn't have a band and doesn't get to rock out.
I've been talking. I was very sad to learn that Dad Brains already existed. So then it was Dad Religion, and now we've landed on Dad Company is kind of where we're going to be right now.
Dad Nasty.
Dad Nasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you listening to these days? Your taste softened a bit, or
a little? Well, no. I mean, I've always been kind of all over the map. So just like, for example, last night, the three of us as a family sat and ate dinner on the couch and watched Idols perform on some, like Tiny Desk kind of thing.
I've seen that show.
It's another. I've seen the Idols Tiny Desk one, but this was another. I can't remember which one of those live performance shows it was. It's a newer one because they have a new album out.
My description of Idols is if Tom Hardy was a band, it would be Idols. Or what's that show that everybody? If Peaky Blinders was a band, it would be Idols.
Right. I mean, there's a lot. I was thinking last night. I was thinking like there's a lot of Motorhead in there too. Like there's like.
They're faster stuff, but the Never Fight a Man with a Perm. I can watch that video of them playing that live over and over and over and over again. That song just gets me pumped up.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like that's a family favorite. Like everybody likes Idols. But if I'm listening to, I've been listening. Oh, so I was thinking in coming in here that you'd be a good person to pitch this, or one of your listeners, because I've been carrying this idea around and I'm too busy to do it. But anybody that wants to do it can have it. And the idea is, because you were talking about like Spotify or being conflicted about listening to Spotify.
Right.
And what I've been wanting to do for years is a local Spotify. Just you've got all these businesses, restaurants and bars and stuff that want to have music playing, and they have to pay licensure to ASCAP or whatever,
right?
Or they have to pay for the Spotify commercial package. If they don't, they get busted and ASCAP sues them, for playing unlicensed music. But these venues, they don't really care so much what the music is. They just want to have good
something
music
in the
on
background. Yeah.
So I think it's a great opportunity. Like if you could get a bunch of local bands on board and say, we're going to put your stuff into this rotation and we're going to give you some amount of royalties, probably can't be very much because people aren't going to pay that much for it. But it establishes that familiarity with local music that, you know, you could then be listening to WMNF or whatever it is, or walk into a place like Armature Works or something and go like,
that's a great idea. I'm running through
the
the Rolodex of guests that have been on the show trying to think what conflagration of a team of guests could somehow pop in. But
yeah, I mean, I talked to a few people and actually a Facebook friend who formerly worked for ASCAP. I think I put it out there like on Facebook, like, hey, somebody should do this, you know. And John Bain, who worked for, he was like one of the ASCAP enforcer guys that would go around to bars and tell them we're going to sue you if you don't stop playing that. You know? But he, I think, had enough like coding, app writing experience, you know, to have some ideas about how that, you know, how to put something like that together.
Well, I've had this theory lately that I've been talking about with guests, which is because of national tours all but drying up and disappearing, there's going to be a much bigger space for local bands to occupy, you know.
Well, and this is kind of part of the larger idea behind Crab Devil and the Peninsularium is like trying to, you know, I feel like Tampa's never really gotten its due, and kind of rightfully so, because we've never been able to get our shit together to the point that we should have our due. But like, all the elements are there. All of the, you know, you've got great artists, you got great musicians, you got great writers, you got all,
great
you know,
food,
all great food,
history,
history, all of that stuff. But the problem is that the connections have never been allowed to develop. Like New Orleans, I think, is a really good kind of sister city example. They're pretty similar to Tampa in a lot of ways, but they're also like, and I was thinking about this morning on terms of timeline, like how much older is New Orleans than Tampa? Well, they're 180 years older than, or no, they're 100 and New Orleans was 1718 and Tampa was 1843. So they're 120 years older. And yeah, that's what it was. Well, so then I thought, well, when did jazz start? Well, it started with Buddy Bolden, 1895. How long ago was that? 120 years. So like we're at the point in our timeline now when we make our jazz, right? Like this is the point where all of these, we had a tossed salad and now we're going to make a melting pot. Like, you know, that we had all these elements here that were kind of rubbing up against each other. But because of segregation and racism and classism and what are all these different things that we've dealt with over the years, everything's kind of been kept in its own box, and the cross-pollination hasn't occurred. And that's what happened in New Orleans, where those cultures, even though, not to say that there was like an egalitarian society or anything, because it certainly wasn't or isn't even, you know, but those forces were allowed to influence each other for long enough that they rubbed off on each other. There's all these like thought processes that I wish I had the time to go down. Like, you know, if I could just have a year of not having to worry about paying bills or whatever, I would study this and understand that. But I've been interested, and I was speaking to, was it Owen Meats or who was it? Somebody about what could really make a music scene here take off. And I was talking about Nashville and some of these other things, but I'm always interested about what gives a place its identity and how that's chosen. It like, you know, New Orleans is a great example between the jazz and the Creole and the Cajun, I'm not Creole, Cajun, and, you know, that sort of stuff. I'm trying to think of what Tampa's identity is like. Well, I think if you ask a local, they'll give you all sorts of examples. But again, it depends on who you ask.
But if you're not from here, it's, what is it? Strip clubs, Cuban sandwiches, and beaches?
Well, so the thing that I say to people about Tampa all the time is like, you know, there's an old cliche about New York. It's a nice place to visit and I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah.
Tampa is the exact opposite. It's a nice place to live. I wouldn't want to visit.
Yeah.
If somebody took you and dropped you in the middle of Dale Mabry and Waters or something, you'd be like, this place is horrible,
wasteland. Yeah.
And it's hard to get to without like an in. It's hard to get to the meat of what's cool about Tampa. You know, you've got to know somebody who's been here a long time that go like, well, I'm gonna take you to Brocados and we'll get a giant devil crab, and you'd be like, oh, this is amazing. You know.
Well,
like,
so there's very much a Latino history. There's very much an Italian history.
So to put it in food terms, the thing that I go back to is crab chilao. I don't know if you know crab chilao. So crab chilao is like a bastardization of crab chilao, which is crab enchilado. So enchilado, the Spanish like slur of words ending in ADO is to drop that and just say "ao." So like pescado becomes pecao.
Okay.
So crab or jaiba enchilado becomes jaiba chilao. And then that becomes crab chilao.
They don't know what to do with you at the firehouse, do they? You are not any firefighter that I've ever met before.
But actually, this is interesting because Hillsborough County, who I work for, started out as largely Cuban fire department. So there's a huge like Cuban tradition there. Every firehouse in Hillsborough County has a little cafecita espresso maker on the stove. Everybody makes Cuban coffee at least twice a day, probably more than that. You know, everybody knows how to make a good sofrito. They like all of that stuff is part of the firehouse culture here. But in terms of crab chilao, it became crab shilao, which is like a black Tampa dish. And so there's traditions of this dish. So what it is it's blue crabs cooked whole in spicy marinara sauce and served over spaghetti, which is it's like the messiest, most ridiculous. You get it all over your face. It's so hot that like your lips are burning.
Yeah.
And you're having to crack open these crabs that are covered in spaghetti sauce with your hands. So it's just like a fabulous mess.
Right.
And
it's not a first date meal.
No, it's what it is like it's like a birthday party at the beach. Is what you would like. Back when there were crabs in the bay that you could just grab.
Makes me think of like Low Country Broil or like whatever they do up in South Carolina.
Yeah. But I think that's it's a perfect example because you can say, so here's a dish that went through like every culture, Italian, Spanish, African, and then with the Tampa twist on it, it got adopted by the Italians, by the Cubans, and by the black community in Tampa. And it kind of like fractured and went all these different ways. And if you ask blacks in Tampa about crab shilao, they know all about it. They spell it like SHELOW or something like that. They don't know the history of how it got to be that way. And then the dish itself, like how long have you lived in Tampa? You don't know about it. You know, you can't, there may be like one restaurant where you can go and order it, but it's not anything that's commonly known by
legit
anybody. So that's food, and that's kind of the problem that we have is
if Bourdain was still alive and visited Tampa, someone would take him to have some crab chilao.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things that we don't tell our story well at all. You know, we don't convey that to people, and we don't take them. Somebody shows up in town, we take them to the fucking Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah.
You know, not like to have some real authentic Tampa experience.
I wonder how much of that is because of somewhat the transient nature. Like almost everybody that I have on the show is from like up northern New York or whatever. You know, it's not a lot of people lived here all their life, and you kind of have to like have some investment in it in your soul to want to be able to promote it. Because if you're late to the game, it's
I think there's some truth to that. You know, there's all kinds of really interesting stories. And
do you know Greg Baker?
Stuff. Yeah.
So I had him on last week, and I was asking him, and I mean, if you know him and you know his story, I can understand his opinion and why he has it. I don't know if I know enough to agree or disagree, but he kind of felt like Seminole Heights and Tampa Heights had its moment, but that now it's being invaded by money and all these other things, and it's not going to be the place that cool people go anymore. And so I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that, or have you thought much about that?
I have opinion. I have plenty of opinions on that. I don't know that I've come to any conclusion on it because I'm conflicted about it.
Conclusions are dangerous.
And but I think that so Greg and I and a few other people, you know, we're the reason why that shit happened. You know? So we have to kind of like bear the responsibility for it. You know, I built the bar at the refinery.
Right.
I built the bar at Angry Chair. I built the bar at Ichikoro. I helped to make those places desirable, and I helped to increase the price. And then I took a house that I bought for $47,000 and sold it for $310,000.
Wow.
You know, so certainly if you want to call that a problem, I'm part of that problem.
Well, not a problem, but like, where is it in the timeline? Is it on the way up? Is it kind of plateaued? Is it on the way out?
I don't know, but this is what interests me in like doing this project now in what's Ybor Heights. You know, this is a different neighborhood. And the same issues are going to come up. You know, some people are really excited. Oh, you guys are coming in here. You're putting multiple millions of dollars into this property. You're gonna raise the property value, everything around it. They're super excited about that. Other people, not so much. You know, and there's valid arguments
both sides.
Both sides. But to me, the difference is what we're trying to do over there is jobs related as well.
Yeah.
And so if we raise the property values of the neighborhood and we inadvertently price out a grandmother who's on a fixed income because her property taxes go up to the point where she can't afford them anymore. I mean, those things happen. But at the same time, if we provided 100 jobs to people in the neighborhood,
it's a net positive.
You know, those people are going to have money in their pockets to pay their increased property taxes, and they're going to reap the benefits.
And that's life. You know, that's, you know, politics, being a parent, being a business person, you know, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and that's very entitled and kind of bougie to say, but it's just, I think, the reality of the situation.
Well, I mean, there's, you know, there's negative effects that you can track from any action that you take in any direction all the time. But yeah, I think like in terms of looking at how do we preserve these neighborhoods and the spirit of the neighborhood and the people, you know, support the people that live there. It's about that. It's like not coming into a neighborhood and having a parasitic relationship to it. Like, the only reason we came here is because the property values were cheap and we couldn't afford anything else. And now what we're going to do is try to drive the prices up and get all of these people out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously not a cool thing to do. But yeah, my argument has always been like, this is what I do. I build things. I make things look nice. I build these environments for people that like to come and hang out with them. Should I stop doing that? You know, like, because that's the argument. Like, you guys should have just left it when it was shitty. Like, I lived in Seminole Heights in 1997. You couldn't even get a fucking pizza delivered. I mean, you literally could not get a pizza delivered. There was nowhere to eat lunch. There was no nothing, you know, and there was just nothing going on. So maybe there's a sweet spot there where you can get a pizza, but you don't have a bunch of dickheads in the bar at night. I don't know, you know.
It's hard for people to have a broad perspective outside their experience of the world, you know, to understand that there's, you know, the impact. Empathy is such a lost art, you know, in this world.
Certainly.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if maybe you can speak on it, maybe you can. As a firefighter, have you been involved in the protests at all? Are you called on to stand by as EMTs or to be present for any of that?
I have been. I haven't been recently. But so I spent quite a few years over in Palm River, like 78th and Causeway, 78th and Palm River, in those neighborhoods. And there was an incident.
That's not Claremelle, is it?
Claremelle, yeah, Claremelle.
Claremelle is a big topic on this show.
Okay,
some of the coolest people that come on the show are from Claremelle. Claremelle's like a breeding ground for strange people.
It's an interesting place. I loved working over there. It's just a really, like, it's one of these it's a poor neighborhood. When you drive through it, you think like, oh, this is going to be just like when I work in Suitcase City, which is like you just run your ass off all night long, no stop. You run 23, 24 calls a shift. Palm River is not really the same way, even though the people there probably have just the same amount of money as the people in Suitcase City. It's a different kind of like working poor neighborhood where these people are like, they're not there to fuck around. They're like, they have to get up and go to work in the morning. They're not going to call 911 for no reason, you know.
Who was it that was telling me it was like military housing, or there was a history there that had to do with the base, or? Well,
that part I don't know, but I do know that so Claremelle would be the section on the east side of 78th Street between Palm River and Causeway. Yeah. And then going south from there, you have Progress Village. And Progress Village was kind of like the 60s, what do you call it? Like the urban renewal
projects.
Well, basically that was like let's get these people as far out of town as we can.
Yeah.
So they built Progress Village, and like the buses didn't even, it was like a cow pasture with a bunch of little 800 square foot block ranch houses that they built there, and kind of plopped these people down. Like they had nowhere to go. They couldn't get to work or get from work. But some of those people are still there today. So,
Dave Decker?
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I know him from being around.
He was in a band called Claremel, and he's been at every protest shooting the photos.
Yeah, and so I've been following his photos and that kind of thing. We're getting ready we've got a mural unveiling on the Crab Devil site on the 24th.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of in direct response to the issue with the city and the whatever you want to call it, the Block the Blub the mural that got painted on the street there. We kind of wanted to do something in response to that and engage some of the local Black artists, especially. So we teamed up with New Roots Art Collective, which is a group of young Black artists, and then Il Sol, which Tony and Michelle have done quite a few murals in the neighborhood. They did the one on Shuffle down the road. They kind of coordinated it and ran it with New Roots, but it's like this is a 40-foot mural that's like a reimagining of the $20 bill as the Harriet Tubman $20 bill, with some kind of Black Lives Matter imagery and protest imagery and stuff.
I love it. I bought this building in 2017, and I was talking to Greg Baker about this. I bought it in like September, and within the first 2 months of being here, we had that hurricane that was supposed to like come right up Tampa Street, and then we had the serial killer. Oh, right. And I was just like, did I just make the worst mistake of my life? Because there's about that fall, like no one wanted to come to my office after about 2:00 in the afternoon. Yeah. But when I came here, I started joining all these local Tampa Heights groups, Seminole Heights group. And it's so funny, it's such a community, and I love. Every night it's, what's this helicopter doing here? Or has anybody seen this bicycle that got stolen?
That's another one of my Facebook alter egos is the Heights Copter page. Have you encountered that?
No.
So I started it during when the serial killer, because it was all like, what's going on? I see a helicopter. Is he out here? What's happening? So the Heights Copter page is basically the helicopter itself talking to you in a very snarky way. Like, you think you're so important. You think you're going to waste $1 million in fuel for me to chase your criminal ass around the Alpine Liquor parking lot. Right. So anytime I would hear the helicopter up in the air at my house,
just snark
I would
and
just
troll
post
people.
and say like, I'm up here, I'm watching you,
How's your boy? Is he have mom and dad's tendencies, or is he going to be like a Republican accountant?
He's 100%. So he's got an afro that is like about a foot taller than he is.
Oh, I love it.
And he is, he has this whole shop at his disposal also. So he loves to like build things, make things, he'll sit for hours and just build his own little models and constructions or sculpt little figures. So yeah, he's definitely a chip off of both of these blocks.
That's awesome to see.
Yeah, he's not really a musical kid though. I mean, he was actually last night. He was sitting there strumming the guitar on the couch. But like, he's had 2 guitars, since he was like 6.
Is he a fan of music?
He's just he didn't care about music at all.
That happens to some people though. Like some people you hear about coming to it late. It's not always the same path for everybody.
And I think he's 12. He's not that much older than I was when I kind of had my musical awakening.
Epiphany.
Yeah. So I was around it and enjoyed it, but I didn't really start, playing and being interested until, I was probably 10, I think, when I started playing banjo, 4th grade. Yeah.
So what you got going right now is kind of a encapsulation. You're doing the firefighter thing. You and your partners are working on, and I want to, before we wrap up, make very clear what this is so that people who listen to this can be on the lookout for it when it comes. Music, you're kind of farting around with it. Nothing too significant.
Right.
Anything more personally with graphic arts that you're doing? Are you doing any photography, sculpture, any of that kind of stuff?
I do just kind of shoot photos around town and stuff.
What do you shoot? What kind of camera?
I have a Fuji X-T2.
Okay.
So it's like it's like a digital version of an old manual camera.
Okay.
You know, you have manual control over everything, and it's like dials. It's not like push button menus
Right.
or anything. It's just like shooting with an old camera.
My wife got into photography about 5-6 years ago, and now she does it. She's an attorney, but basically she does it professionally. She does, couple shoots and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I had, it was one of those things where I had difficulty calling it an art until I understood, what's going into between aperture and light and I mean, and it's really, you're painting with colors with a camera, I used to think it was just, you point, you shoot, and you have a good lens, and that's all it is. And after I kind of saw through her, like what was entailed with it, I really dug it. I have a bunch of books down there by this guy, Glenn Friedman, who he did a lot of the Dogtown skateboarding scene, and he did the early Run DMC and Beastie Boys and Black Flag and all this stuff. So I love that old, like, grainy black and white band photography where you can kind of almost catch movement in it. That's why I love Dave Decker stuff so much, because he shoots a lot of the live music stuff around. So anyway, well, I appreciate you so much for coming in. Now, I want to get this straight. So the collective is called
Crab Devil.
There's 2 shops that you're working out of called
the Live Work Studios is my business. Yeah.
Okay. And then is the name of the establishment going to be the Peninsularium?
Exactly. So just like the example I gave you before, Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, their attraction is called the House of Eternal Return. So this is the Peninsularium brought to you by Crab Devil. So, Crab Devil is the artist collective. If we are to do other projects, those projects could take on other names. The Peninsularium is the place at 3800 North Nebraska.
And keep your eyes open for it mid-2021?
Yeah, and we'll be doing, so we have this mural. I don't know when you'll run this, it's probably not in time, but we have this mural unveiling on the 24th.
I think we might
Saturday.
Make it. Yeah.
Okay. So people are welcome to come out for that. This is just kind of us trying to introduce ourselves to the neighborhood, say hello. We're going to grill some hot dogs and have a couple of rappers. Mike Deluxe is there, and I think one other performer will be out there, outside, socially distanced, like 2 to 5 o'clock kind of thing. So anybody that wants to show up for that is welcome to, and all that information is available on our Facebook page, which is Crab Devil, and there's Instagram for Crab Devil, and also Peninsula, which is at Crab Devil or at Peninsularium are the Instagram pages.
Let me ask you this question. Can you turn this off? Because I feel like you are just a conduit for you've got an itch and you're trying to scratch it.
Well, I was thinking about the social media thing, and my wife is on me pretty frequently for spending too much time on my phone and social media and stuff. And I've told her before, imagine if I had to tell you all of this shit all the time, Yeah,
you're getting out cheap.
Yeah, so that's kind of the band name repository is just I need a way to get this stuff out of my head.
Here's the argument, and I don't know if this holds any water, but picture me like this, and for the people listening, I'm holding my cell phone up in front of my face, but replace it with a newspaper. Why is that different?
Right.
If I was sitting in the front room reading a newspaper, I would be, whatever. So I have an electronic newspaper that I can.
The difference is that there's no virtue signaling going on. Nobody knows what you're up to. You might be doing something bad on your phone. The newspaper.
This is true. Okay.
You could be, the worst thing you could be doing is reading a poor quality newspaper.
Yeah.
Your phone, you could be looking at anything.
Right.
And that's it. You're not. It's even it's the difference between reading a Kindle on the train or reading a copy of Moby Dick. If you're reading a copy of Moby Dick, people are like, "Whoa, man, that guy's he reads Moby Dick on the phone."
It's look at this asshole, won't put his phone down.
Yeah, which you could be. I was just reading Moby Dick on my phone.
A lot of assholes read Moby Dick. Yeah, I'm not saying that you're an asshole,
but yeah, and that's the thing. When your wife catches you, you're like, "No, I was reading Moby Dick on my phone."
Well, it's. So with COVID, we were around each other a lot more than normally we were. And as a divorce attorney, I can tell you there was a huge uptick in divorce cases. People were at each other's throats a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I get a lot is when I get home, she wants me to be present. That's part of what she wants me to be involved.
And that's understandable. Yeah.
And I completely understand that. But the flip side of that is all day long I've been present. I've been on the phone for these clients, answering their questions, solving their problems, making these arguments. I want to go inside my head. I want to go inside a hard candy shell
Right.
and kind of recover a little bit.
And yeah, I think like some of it to me is just like it's just it must be what like stand-ups get out of putting a routine together. Like there's like a joke because that's all I like. I'll post political stuff on Facebook just because, you know, Donald Trump's an idiot and so he's somebody to make jokes about, you know, but I'm not like a retweeter of memes or anything like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if what I want to see there and what I enjoy to see there is like original content from people. Like tell me a joke that's funny,
Yeah.
or, you know, say something interesting that I haven't heard, because I'll put heartfelt stuff up on there too. But, you know, it's about like trying to craft some little thing that is like going to make somebody laugh or make somebody think or whatever, you know. That's the kind of thing.
You're a builder of joy.
But that's one of the taglines that we use for the Peninsularium is an architecture of joy is what we call it. So yeah,
I dig it. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm trying to think who you remind me. You're like this weird like Bukowski / Hemingway / Kerouac. I don't know. You got because you're the firefighter. You know, you look like you can handle yourself, but you also be happy playing drums, reading a book, painting a picture, kind of a jack of all trades. It's very cool. Thank you so much. I'm glad you reached out to me. It was great having you on. I can't tell you how stoked I am to go to the Peninsularium. It sounds like it's
great.
Going to be right up my alley. My kids will love it. That's great for something like that to come to the neighborhood.
Yeah,
so
that's what we're looking for. You know, like a real family friendly thing that, you know, that you can spend a day hanging out and have the kids be entertained and yourself as well.
Well, I wish you well, and hopefully you'll come back on around the time of the grand opening so we can talk about it further.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.